Our top story, a second potential assassination on Donald Trump's life. Later today, former President Trump is expected to meet with the acting director of the Secret Service after another shooting incident. Trump had been golfing on Sunday when shots were heard. The gunman was about 120 and 150 meters away from Trump. A Secret Service agent spotted an AK-47 style weapon poking out of the bushes in the golf course, about a hole ahead of where Trump was playing. An agent fired and the gunman dropped the rifle and fled in an SUV, leaving the weapon behind. He was apprehended in a nearby county. NDTV's Vishal Vivek has more.
An AK-47 style rifle, a backpack and a GoPro camera. The things left behind by the suspect in the second attempt on Donald Trump's life in the last 2 months. The suspect, identified as 58-year-old Ryan Ruth, was arrested as he tried to flee when a US Secret Service agent spotted him. The Trump campaign said that the 78-year-old was safe, and the Republican presidential nominee lauded the US Secret Service for protecting his life, as a sniper got within 100 yards of him while he played golf at his Florida club. Just about 2 months ago, Thomas Matthew Crooks had fired at Trump with an AR-15 style rifle from the roof of a nearby building, sending shockwaves across the globe. The latest incident has raised questions on the US Secret Service again, as a gunman was spotted within shooting distance of Trump one more time. Authorities say that Trump does not have the same level of security as the sitting president, and the Secret Service already provides adequate protection.
But the Secret Service did exactly what they should have done. They provided exactly what the protection should have been, and their agent did a fantastic job.
US President Joe Biden has condemned the incident and said there is no place for political violence in the country. There are many questions that will need to be answered in the coming days as the FBI investigates the case. With Vishal Vivek, Bureau Report, NDTV.
Reacting to the incident, billionaire Elon Musk took to his social media platform X. He questioned, why is no one trying to assassinate President Joe Biden and Democratic presidential candidate Kamala Harris? He later deleted the post. Meanwhile, Biden and Harris were briefed on the shooting and each issued a statement condemning political violence. Now, Kamala Harris said she was deeply disturbed by the day's events and, quote, said, "We all must do our part to ensure that this incident does not lead to any more violence," unquote. Now, let's take a closer look at the apparent second assassination attempt on Donald Trump. We're joined by Tiffany Watkins Ahan, and Tiffany, who has worked in the White House during the first term of President George W. Bush, along with being a part of the Bush-Cheney re-election campaign. Also with us this morning, Richard Painter, professor at the University of Minnesota Law School and former White House chief ethics lawyer. Tiffany, let me come to you first. Second time in a little over 2 months. Second attempt on Donald Trump's life. What concerns you most about this repeat scenario?
Well, what concerns me most is that, the level of violence around this election and around President Trump, former President Trump's life is a bit unsettling. And also, what also concerns me is, how much the Secret Service is actually prepared to handle these types of scenarios and attempts. Look, they seem to be doing a great job, as good a job as they can to make sure that the former president is protected. But I know this is a bit unprecedented, and perhaps they need more resources.
All right, Tiffany, now, Richard, it's really disturbing we're seeing this again. I really want to know what needs to be done. The Palm Beach County Sheriff went on record saying that Trump does not receive the same level of protection that a sitting president does. So if this were Joe Biden, the security protocol would have been very different. The entire golf course we're hearing would have been covered. Given what we've seen twice now, and that we're in such a polarizing election cycle, what do you think should change with regards to Trump's security detail?
I believe the security should be substantially increased for former President Trump and also for Vice President Harris. We simply cannot tolerate violence, political violence in a democracy. The United States is the second largest democracy in the world after India. Both countries have experienced in their history political violence. The United States went through a period in the 1960s where President Kennedy and his brother Bobby Kennedy were killed, and Bobby Kennedy was killed when he was a candidate about to win the Democratic nomination in 1968. We also had the assassination of Martin Luther King. We had attempts on the lives of Gerald Ford, President Ronald Reagan, and that former President Trump. This cannot be tolerated. We need to increase the security, the Secret Service protection of former President Trump, Vice President Harris. We have to have elections decided at the ballot box, not with an AK-47.
Tiffany, what do you think? Is it as simple as getting the Secret Service to up the security detail? Because there are always complaints about how there's limited staffing, and this is not as easy as it may sound.
Yeah, I think for the Secret Service, there's a couple things that I know the request for upping staffing seems like a logical one, but they need they probably need additional funding from Congress to make sure that occurs. And I know there's a bipartisan task force kind of reviewing former President Trump's first assassination attempt, and this bipartisan task force can recommend funds that can go towards the Secret Service to help them, bolster their staff and to get more resources.
All right, Richard, there was much anger over how the Secret Service handled the first shooting. We saw Director Kim Chiefley resign. She's been replaced by the acting director. Now, one Democratic senator has said that people will actually be shocked and appalled when lawmakers release that report that Tiffany was just talking about of the first attempted assassination. But are we likely going to see any heads roll this time around? It's kind of rather tricky because the top brass, so to speak, has already been axed, so to speak, or stepped aside.
Well, I don't know what's going to happen politically here, but it's shocking to me that an assassin could get in the bushes right next to the Trump golf course. I live across the street from the golf course, and I can assure you that if the president of the United States, former president, or a candidate for president were playing golf there, there would be someone on that road making sure that nobody's getting into the bushes near the golf course. That's just such an obvious tactic that could be used by an assassin. And furthermore, there's a golf course owned by the former president of the United States. So I don't know why that road wasn't being watched, and that man should have been arrested as soon as he tried to enter the bushes, rather than be fired on when he's pointing a rifle out of through the fence. The United States spends $900 billion about on our defense budget, almost $1 trillion. I would think we could spend on our Secret Service enough money to protect our democracy from assassins. Once again, a democracy must choose its candidates at the ballot box, and we cannot allow this, and we need to spend whatever it takes to protect our presidential candidates as well as our presidents.
Let's talk about the political fallout. Now, Tiffany, the first time this happened, we heard how Trump was supposedly a changed man. Many will argue he really did not change. But how much of what we've seen is going to play into voter sentiment is what I'm wondering, especially because early voter ballots are already out. Absentee ballots are now officially available in Alabama. September 19th, in a few days from now, are supposed to be available in Wisconsin.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see, actually, Allister, how the voter sentiment will be impacted by the second assassination attempt on former President Trump's life. It will remain to be seen. However, voters will be sympathetic to this second attempt, and whether that impacts the way they vote, that's a probably question that remains to be seen. But in general, when these types of attempts happen, voters tend to sympathize with with the person that was actually attacked. So, or attempted to be attacked. So, I think there could be a bit of a sway towards President Trump, but again, it remains to be seen if that is the case.
Richard, Republicans are already blaming Democrats for the apparent second assassination attempt. For instance, they're saying Trump, they're pointing to Republicans, Democrats saying that Trump will be the next dictator. They're saying that this kind of rhetoric really has to stop. Now, they're saying that it's not surprising that we have this kind of shooting on Trump. So how do you think the Democrats have to play their cards? Because they really have to tiptoe carefully on this one.
Well, in democracies, you do have vigorous political debate and rhetoric that is sometimes very aggressive. And Donald Trump himself has talked about putting Democrats in prison if he's elected president of the United States. And he has made up stories about Haitian people eating dogs and cats in the middle of Ohio. So yes, that's going to draw a strong response. And that has absolutely nothing to do with violence of crazy people who get a gun. Nobody would justify political violence. There's no excuse for it anywhere. And we absolutely need to spend more on the Secret Service. And there, yes, I'd fault the Biden administration for not requesting additional funds for the Secret Service. But the idea that, gee, you can't criticize Donald Trump for his conduct in office and for his words because it might inspire some crazy person, I mean, that just makes absolutely no sense. We need to protect our candidates, protect our democracy. And one of the threats to our democracy is from assassins, and the other is from candidates who say that if they gain political office, they're going to put their enemies in prison, and who engage in other inflammatory rhetoric, and that does need to be.
Okay, Tiffany, we have just a few minutes left, actually just about 30 seconds. On the flip side, Tiffany, this is for you. How much of the onus is on the Republicans to tone down their divisive rallying cries? Like we just heard Richard there talking about, immigrants eating dogs and other inflammatory remarks.
I do think the Republicans should, choose their words carefully, as they say. Having inflammatory rhetoric serves no good purpose when you're trying to, regain control of Congress and the presidency. I think it's really important and incumbent upon Republicans to talk about the issues that affect the American people every day. And those issues, that rhetoric is not helpful to that message. Thanks,
Tiffany. Thanks, Richard. Appreciate your time this morning.